Hello everybody, welcome to More Chainsaws Needed, where, because I love horror, thrillers and suspense, I am going to talk, rant, rave about, review and recommend movies, TV series and books in those genres for you guys as I draw. By now, you may have noticed that my favorite horror author of all the time is Stephen King. However, what you may find as new information, as this series is quite young, is that my absolute favorite monster of all time is the zombie. Yes, in a world where we have every single kind of vampire, from horrible to shiny shonen and even a vegetarian dog, and werewolves go from the cuddly adorable balls of fur to dead machines with too many teeth, I like the unassuming, mostly unchanged rotting corpse of what used to be a person. Today I want to talk about the zombie in pop culture and how, despite people thinking that they all are the same, no matter if the zombie in question is American, Mexican, Cuban, Korean, or Japanese, the genre has evolved, and we get a completely different monster depending on how the writers treat their living dead and what they want to say with them. And no, I don't mean the difference between the fast or the slow zombie, or even the difference between voodoo zombies and viral zombies, because while the original zombie was the voodoo zombie, they have been a little overshadowed by the viral zombies to the point that we tend to forget that, among other things, the voodoo zombies are not in fact undead. So today I'm only going to talk about the viral zombies and movies, TV shows, and books with viral zombies on them. Okay? Since, after all, voodoo zombies can be seen a metaphor for slavery, and to deal with that particular kind of worms, I'd need to dedicate a whole video for them. So instead, let's get the chainsaws ready and talk about the viral zombie genre, and of course, for that we have to start with the movie that began the plague, Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead is a classic for many reasons. Not the least of one is the fame that it has as the seminal viral zombie movie. And yet, a lot of rules that people insist are impossible to ignore for a zombie movie are completely broken here. Among the very first ones, zombies here are shown as smart. Yes, I know. Everyone hated when Big Daddy started using a machine gun in Land of the Dead, because everyone forgot that Day of the Dead had already shown zombies learning to use weapons. And yet, the very first zombie we see in Night not only knows how to fight, he also stalks Barbara, knows what a closed window is, and tries to use a rock as a weapon to break said car's window. They are slow, yes, but they are very deliberate in their movements. Another broken rule is, well, that they tell us a lot rather than show us. This is, of course, due to the movie budget that consisted on whatever George Romero had in his pockets at the time and whatever the actors could pitch in. Seriously, the car that Barbara drives, for example, is the first zombie's mother car. We rarely see the zombies, which of course are never called zombies. Mostly because, well, they didn't think of them as zombies, and we never see them half dead. The radio show that Ben turns on, which helps us to get a lot of exposition, is nicely interrupted before we can hear that the living there are, well, dead, which is going to help a lot for the real shocking scene later on. Oh, and zombies are afraid of fire and lights here, to the point that they will avoid fire and break the car and truck's lights, again showing that they are smart, in order to be safe. And of course, Ben both notices and hears this on the radio and immediately tries to use that to his advantage. But at the same time, we can see the genesis of many rules that would be followed later to the letter, some of which would also affect other horror movies with completely different genres and monsters. For example, before Night, the idea of a horror movie with a downer ending where everyone died was unthinkable. Horror movies were for kids, to dump them on Saturday morning so that the parents could do something else. Nowadays, horror for kids is a subgenre on itself, but no one would just leave a kid to watch a mainstream horror movie unattended. Keyword there, unattended, without being accused of being the worst parent ever. So yeah, the kill them all ending came here. And also, of course, the idea that zombies must be a metaphor for something in our real world. Because see, due to the fact that Ben is played by Dwayne Jones, and he is killed at the end by the cavalry that was rescuing people because they think he's a zombie, a thing that was changed in the 1990 remake, by the way. In that one, he is a zombie by that point. It's hard not to make parallels to the then starting civil rights movement. Hell, we can't forget that in the end it's a black man. I am trying to explain that, hey. Yes, I know. It's important. Can I continue? We can't forget that in the end it's a black man killed by the police, which makes the social commentary important even today. But that came from John's input to the character, who insisted that he should die at the end and be an educated fella, while Romero, who always insisted that he never planned for the movie to have any commentary, didn't even notice the parallels until he saw the movie at the cinemas, even when he was one of the editors. Not that that bothered him. After all, by the time he made Dawn of the Dead, he was all into making zombies a commentary, first of consumerism, then of blind obedience, and so on and on and on as he kept making the series of the Death. And while it was Night, the one who gave us zombies as flesh-eating ghouls, into very memorable scenes that probably traumatized audiences way back then, it was not the movie that gave us the most classic trait people give zombies, even though it's not that common anymore. See, Romero's zombies never ate brains. Those were his co-writers' sequel zombies. When Romero and John Russo disagreed on how to continue Night of the Living Dead, they separated, and John went on to write his own sequel novel in 1977, having retained the rights to The Living Dead, which explains why Romero's series continued with just The Dead. This novel would later become the 1985 classic Return of the Living Dead, and it was there where the zombies first uttered the iconic line, "Rains." Zombies remained pretty unchanged for a while, mostly on B-movies for big gorehound fans. Hey, does not appreciate gore. In 1996, however, The Shambling Dead came to a new public for the video game crowd when Capcom released the video game Biohazard, known everywhere outside Japan as Resident Evil. Created by Shinji Mikami and Tokuro Fujiwara, Resident Evil took the idea of a virus-created zombie that was somewhat implied by Return of the Living Dead, since Romero zombies are never quite explained, even if a space probe is sometimes mentioned, and took that little zombie and ran with it to the last possible consequences. While nowadays Resident Evil has gone far away from its roots of survival horror and zombies, since the current monsters are more like mushroom-induced atrocities, one can't deny that the original T-virus gave new life to the old dead bodies by reminding us all of the real horror of the Shambling Dead, that at the end of the day, you can become one really easily. Resident Evil was followed by Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, Resident Evil Code Veronica, and Resident Evil the Remake, and Resident Evil 0 that was released in 2002. After that, the whole thing with the TNG virus kind of went away and they introduced parasites, Las Plagas, but that's not really important right now. The important thing is the date, 2002, because in 2003, zombies had another big jump in popularity in yet another media, thanks to no other than Max Brooks, son of legendary comedian Mel Brooks, when he published the amazing book, The Zombie Survival Guide. Since Night of the Living Dead, zombie fans have had this, let's call it game, about how would we survive the inevitable zombie apocalypse. Yes, I am aware that some people take it way too seriously, but most of us know that calling the inevitable zombie apocalypse inevitable is just a joke. And Max took that game and made it into a very good book that takes the joke as a deadly serious matter, without losing the humor that made his family famous. Best part of the book, in my opinion, were not just the sections that make differences between the voodoo zombies, the Hollywood zombies, and the real zombies, but the end where he documents real zombie attack cases and how they were dealt with. In fact, it is a very funny thing how he treats the zombie plague as a very normal plague because it has a lot of parallels with what we are going on right now. It is actually telling that in World War Z, the book that followed, the Zombie Survival Guide, the whole pandemic thing starts in China. That is where you see Max Strange as a horror writer in those real zombie vignettes, which were sometime later adapted into comic book form. Personally, the Cannibal Cossacks still haunt my nightmares. But those were a little bit ignored at the beginning for the nobility of having a book very seriously telling you that Molotov bombs are not a good weapon against zombies because then you have flaming zombies after you. We completely forgot that zombies didn't like fire. 2003 was also the year when Robert Kirkman and Tony Moore gave us the first issue of The Walking Dead. So yeah, very, very good year for zombie fans, but I will talk about the Walking franchise a bit later. Then came 2004, and with it, the only movie by Zack Snyder that I like, probably because the script was by James Gunn. I am talking about the Dawn of the Dead remake, which introduced us to the biggest debate in zombie lore. Yes, even bigger than the voodoo versus biological, and should we know the origin of a zombie apocalypse, or should we keep it secret? Because that's when fast zombies were introduced to the lore. Zombies who, while not as smart as Romero zombies, could sprint faster than marathon runners, even if live they were very sedentary people. Yes, I am aware 28 Days Later exists and was released in 2002, but those are not zombies but rage-filled living people a la crazies. Completely different beasts, and we will talk about them in a different video. And that's when the zombie apocalypse in media really took off. I mean it. While there hadn't been a year without a zombie or zombie-adjacent movie since 1977, none of those had been what we'd call a blockbuster. 2004 alone gave us 21 zombie movies, including the aforementioned Dawn, the woefully underrated Dead and Breakfast, the forgettable Resident Evil Apocalypse, and finally the absolute classic Shaun of the Dead. 2005 on his own gave us 22 zombie movies, including George Romero's return to the genre with Land of the Dead. So yeah, zombies had landed, and we're still trying to beat them off our pop entertainment lawn. And in the metaphor thing, all these movies treated zombies differently, from, again, the metaphor of consumerism and doing things without really thinking that we appear in Day of the Dead, to the you are living your life without really living it that we see in Shaun. In all fairness, zombies took a little bit of time to get really into the book world. We still had many books that could be considered about zombie outbreaks, including my beloved King Cell, where we have cell phone-induced zombies, I kid you not, but I will talk about that later on my King series. It wasn't really until 2007, with, again, Max Brooks' World War Z, when the zombies really infected the publishing houses, with 2011 being the same year with about 11 zombies movie officially published. I unfortunately have no way to check how many self-published zombie novels were made that year, but remembering NaNoWriMo, I bet a lot. Zombies took a bit longer to shamble their way onto our TV sets, even if right now it seems like they are literally unescapable. They are in every streaming. The first real success zombies had outside the occasional episode on anthology series was the British miniseries Dead Set, which put the zombie apocalypse right on track with the eviction night of Big Brother UK, back when Big Brother was also unescapable, making the only survivors of the thing be, well, the housemates as they were completely isolated from the rest of the world. It's a very tight series, but with only 5 episodes, you have to be tight. That set aired in 2008, exactly 6 weeks before the end of the actual Big Brother UK Season 8, which was a very good cross promotion. But while that mini could have been just a tiny flare in a night of nothing, 2010 brought the big guns. And by big guns, I am talking about Norman Reedus' arms. I mean, the Walking Dead's adaptation. Originally directed by Frank Darabont, Walking Dead started airing in AMC. And it's still going on 3 years after the comic finally ended. Although, just as I was recording this, it seems that they are finally done with the main series, even if the spin offs continue. Because, well, yeah, some fans, including me, we insist that the plot is deader than the zombies that the survivors sometimes face. When it started, it became a phenomenon, and while in the last few years it has lost some steam, it is hard to think about humanity surviving a zombie plague when we have people who don't believe in protection from a normal plague. It still has some of the most beloved characters on TV right now. In particular, TV original character Daryl Dixon, Norman Reedus. He became so popular that the chant, "If Daryl dies, we riot," was a common chant whenever a new season was announced, given that since it's zombies, everybody could die, and Daryl had been rumored to die since season 2. In any case, The Walking Dead opened the gates again for even more zombies on TV. While personally I think that the zombie apocalypse has no place for a 24 episodes per season multi-season series, it's heartwarming to see so many rotting corpses from all over the world in our small screens. The thing is, as we have gone so far away from the original dead guy with a rock in Night of the Living Dead, there are a lot of people that forget that zombies, as a genre, do not have rules set in stone. Unlike, say, werewolves or vampires who have their roots in legends of the past and so have interesting tidbits of lore, like the fact that you can distract a vampire by forcing them to count spilled rice, just like what you can do with fairies. They can cross running water and so on, and also, well, that werewolves are incredibly allergic to silver. Zombies don't have those. Even if we were talking about voodoo zombies, I can bet that the rules of how to make one and what said zombie can do change depending on if your priest is in New Orleans or in Haiti. But when you go to the lurching menace that sprung from the Romero Russo trunk, the only rule is that you define what the rules in your universe are for zombies. Do you want to reveal the origin of the plague? Go ahead. Do you want running zombies? Not a problem. Do your zombies gain some knowledge of the victims by eating the brains? Hey, there are 2 very different approaches to that already, so feel free to add a third. Do you want people who are half immune and so become super half zombie hybrids in a high school in Korea? Not a problem. We have those. Sure, if you are working on a specific zombie universe, then you do have to follow those rules. Do not try to bring in World War Z zombie warfare to a Resident Evil discussion, because those two are so different beasts that they aren't even in the same plane. Sure, some things might work for both kinds of zombies. Basically, remove the head, destroy the brain. But in the end of the day, they both have different rules because they are different beasts. And that is what makes zombies amazing, because now we have all kind of different genres and they all can have zombies. You want traditional zombies, romantic zombies, existentially aware zombies, comedic zombies, zombies that will reveal parenthood in a very weird way. We got them all. From warm bodies, where a zombie falls in love with a living girl, to Dead 11 when we got a post-apocalyptic world written by none other than a Backstreet Boys, to Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, where Elizabeth Bennet has to worry about more than just if Mr. Darcy is a good partner or not. I mean, the book, of course, the movie was terrible, to Zombies on a Train. Train to Busan is still incredible. Basically, no matter what flavor of pop culture you like, you are going to find a version with zombie sauce. Since today was a basic history of these amazingly diverse monsters, I decided to end with some not so common recommendations because, I mean, obviously, read World War Z, watch the Romero movies, Shaun of the Dead, Train to Busan, and so on. But if you are looking for some less known and recommended zombie cool stuff, I have some recs for you on each media. For books, check out the Newsflesh trilogy by Myra Grant. It's 4 books, so at least give a chance to feed the very first one, which is the story of 3 brave bloggers who are following the Republican candidate for the first presidential election in the US after the zombie apocalypse. It is an amazing read with a lot of very important messages about the power of the free press and the new media. And once you recover from that one, because trust me, it's going to do a mess of your insides, keep on reading with Deadline, Blackout, and Feedback. I can vouch for Deadline and Blackout. I have read the 3 books like 5 times. I am starting Feedback just now, but it is still great. Myra Grant is an amazing author. In movies, oh god, there is a lot to choose. But one that is close to my heart and that I rarely see recommended is Cockney vs. Zombies, a British comedy where Andy and Terry find their plan to rob a bank to save the retirement home where their grandfather lives, interrupted by, you guessed it, the zombie apocalypse. This is a dark comedy, so dark that it pushes far, far beyond what is appropriate, comes back through the line, and then crosses it again. Because, yes, now Andy and Terry have to go and save the poor, innocent, defenseless old people at the retirement home from the zombies. But you see, bad news for the zombies? These elderly folks are not going to wait for a rescue, and they are not damsels in distress. I mean, some of them survived the troubles. Seriously, this movie is worth it for the scene of a zombie chasing a man on a walker alone. Watch it. And finally, on TV, I can't recommend iZombie enough. I mean, it's the one series that didn't go directly to the zombie apocalypse or to all people know about zombies. It has both smart and feral zombies, crime-solving zombies, capitalist zombies, the problems of dating when you are the undead, the best sidekick any zombie would ever need or want, and Steven Weber in season 2. Seriously, watch it. I can guarantee you will fall in love with Liv Moore. I want to thank my dear patrons, Mitch Hyman, Elaine Hu, and Jessica, as well as my first supporter, Tanya Pineda, and the most amazing Amy Song, without whom none of my videos would be possible. I also want to remind you that if you want to support these and my other projects and get your name mentioned here, you can do so at patreon.com/Adalisa, written link on description with my link tree, as I know my name can be hard to spell. And with just $1 USD a month, you will always be thanked in my videos, as well as get access to a ton of art before anyone else. And get the chance to suggest future subjects for videos here and in Let's Talk About. If Patreon is too much of a commitment for you right now, you can also check my coffee link on my link tree, where with just 1 cup of coffee, you get mentioned in 1 video. If you can't support me this way, I also accept likes, subscriptions to the channel, comments so that the algorithm catches engagement, and of course, you sharing the links. I also welcome all your questions, feedback, and suggestions in the comments below. This was Adalisa Zarate, and remember, There is not a problem in a horror genre that can't be solved with more chainsaws.